Did you know that the government can legally take your land from you? I'm Tiffany Weber. I'm a real estate attorney in North Carolina. And guess what? The government has taken my land. So today I'm going to tell you how the process worked, why they were allowed to do it, and give you a breakdown of generally how the government can take your land. First, we got to get a little bit nerdy. This process is called eminent domain, and this is the right of a government entity to take private property for a public use. And there has to be some legitimate public use, and there has to be essentially no other way that the project can get done without taking private land for that purpose. And the main things you'll see this for are roads and utilities. The government has done a lot of work in the background before you even find out. So there's, surveys being done, there's project plans being made. They're exploring other ways to get the project done without having to involve private property owners. Once the government has determined that there's no other way for them to complete this project that is for the public use and benefit and that is necessary, then they're going to notify the affected property owners. So usually you'll get a notice that the project is coming. So for example, the building that we're sitting right now, some of our land was taken to widen Williamson Road. And we got a notice that this was going to be happening, and we received an offer. Now, this offer is supposed to be fair and reasonable. I don't know if you've ever heard the, no taking without just compensation. The government is required to pay you a fair value for your land, so they don't just steal it. There is money that has to be exchanged based on the value of the land, but you do not have to accept the first offer. Think about it like any sort of negotiation. The government comes with a number, but if you don't agree that that is fair value for the land that they will be taking, you don't have to accept that first offer. You can begin negotiations with the government. And because you don't have to accept that first offer, you begin the negotiation process. And if you don't feel that that initial offer reflects the fair value of the property, you can do this on your own, or many people elect to hire an attorney to help negotiate. And there are attorneys who focus just on this area of law that have dealt with the government entities. They, know how to get the appraisals, they know how to prove the value of your property. And many of them work on a contingency basis, meaning that they only get paid if they get you more money than the first offer, and they only take a portion of what is above the first offer, not the entire amount. But I have also seen many people negotiate on their own and get a higher amount than the initial offer. Now, let's assume that you and the government cannot agree on a fair price. What happens next? It doesn't mean that the government can't take the property. If there is some legitimate use and they have the power of eminent domain, the government can still take the property. It's just a matter of what amount they pay you and when you get that payment. So again, if you haven't agreed on the price, then the government can start a condemnation proceeding. So that's where they file a case with the court, and this allows them to go ahead and get the property, and they have to deposit the initial amount of the offer with the clerk so that you'll never get less than that amount while you continue to try to work out the amount that you will be paid. So, the initial offer, again, you won't get below that, but you may get more than that depending on how the negotiations or the lawsuit works out. So if the condemnation proceeding is filed, as an attorney, I strongly recommend, if you haven't already, that you hire an attorney to represent you in this matter, because it can get really complicated. There's things that have to happen that attorneys know how to do very well that the general public may not be aware of the steps to take and the rules of civil procedure. Now, there may be some rare cases where the government's purpose is not legitimately for a public use, or a court doesn't agree that the government should have the right to take the property. This is rare. So I don't want to give people false hope that just because they get a notice that they can get the outcome of keeping their land. It is mostly unlikely that that will be the case. At that point, you're trying to negotiate more for a higher amount of money rather than trying to keep the land. But nothing is impossible. There have been cases where a taking was stopped because it wasn't legitimately for public use, or there was some other way to get the project done without taking private property. But those things are decided through legal battles. So again, that's where attorneys come in, discovery, depositions, reviewing voluminous documents, but all the while you can still be trying to negotiate for the best price for the property. So the most important things to remember here, the power of eminent domain does give the government the right to take private property for a public use, but they have to give you just compensation. You do not have to take the first offer. And if you don't and you can't come to an agreement on the amount before the government has to proceed with the project, then they can file a condemnation action where they deposit the initial offer with the court while you either continue to work towards a settlement or you go to court to determine what the fair value of the property is. Let me know. What do you think? Do you agree with eminent domain? Do you think it is terrible? Just sound off below.